Greetings everyone, my name is Jonathan Bailey and I'm from the site Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. Helpful information below. Today I wanted to talk about an article that was on Torrent Freak, which in turn pointed to an article on Takedown Piracy. Takedown Piracy, real quickly, is a large-scale piracy enforcement service. They send millions of DMCA takedown notices and focus on cases of widespread and broad piracy on the internet. However, they ran across a CyberLocker service that I will not be naming in this video because I think it was rather short-sighted of them to actually name the service for various reasons. I don't think name and shame works quite in this regard, in this situation. But regardless, that's just a difference of opinion. But the service refused to handle or refused to process their DMCA takedown notice regarding some links on their site unless Takedown Piracy paid a $50 fee. This raised the question on Torrent Freak and a couple other sites as to whether or not copyright holders should pay for the privilege of executing DMCA takedown notices. Now, in the United States, that'll never work, and it also won't work in most of the European Union, New Zealand, Australia, most places where there are notice and takedown provisions in place. And the reason is the DMCA and these notice and takedown systems are actually a protection for the host. Because the basic idea is this: the host is benefiting from piracy, at least in some small way. If you upload a pirated movie to a CyberLocker site, if you upload something to YouTube that's in copyright infringing, or any host, basically every time you use a host to upload infringing material, that host is benefiting from it. Because whether they're selling ads next to it, you're a paying customer, or they're getting some other benefit. Basically, if the host is not making money off its customers using it in the way it's designed, then the host has more serious problems than an issue with piracy. They have a very deep business problem. So the idea is that hosts are benefiting from piracy, even if they don't want to talk about it or admit it, but that benefit shouldn't necessarily make them liable since they aren't controlling it. So the idea is the DMCA is in exchange for the being not liable for this infringement, hosts agree or have to remove this content after a notification. And the idea is that the expense and the cost it takes to remove content via the DMCA for the host is much, much less than the potential legal risk of leaving it up and being sued as a potential, I guess you would say, potentially copyright infringer in this case. So long story short, you're not going to see this in the US, you're not going to see this in most countries. Whatever country this CyberLocker service is in, I don't know. Apparently they feel that they can do this. But the question remains, should hosts be able to share the cost with copyright holders? Well, the first problem I have with this situation is the amount being charged is utterly and completely ridiculous. $50, even if we assume that the person who does the takedown is being paid $100 an hour, it doesn't take 30 minutes to execute a takedown notice. It takes only a few seconds to read it, parse it, find the link, and disable, especially on a CyberLocker server where everything is going to be database driven. You can just simply click a link in the management and have it taken care of. This is a clear case of overcharge. And it's a clear case to extort money from copyright holders. And yes, I do believe that's exactly what it is. It's an attempt to profit from DMCA takedown notices. Hey, that's your content. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Pay me $50, I'll make it go away. If YouTube can offer its content ID system free to copyright holders, if Google can process 1 million DMCA takedown notices per month without charging copyright holders and still turn a good profit, I think that these CyberLocker sites should have no trouble processing takedown notices without charging $50 per URL. It's pretty ridiculous on their part to claim that they need this or that they deserve this money for handling. This is an attempt to turn takedown notices into a profit center. And I'm the first person there to criticize copyright holders when they do things like those mass BitTorrent lawsuits that try to turn piracy into a direct profit through law. This is, to me, the same thing ethically. It's a terrible and atrocious way to abuse a system and try to turn it into a profit center that you shouldn't have. Turn something that should be overhead into a profit center. I just don't think that's legal. That's ethical, rather. But the idea that copyright holders should bear some burden isn't necessarily that outrageous. but I definitely don't think it should be in that range. There's a lot of potential solutions out there to sort of use financial motivations to discourage false or excessive takedown notices. ICANN, the organization that controls all domain names on the internet, recently ran into a problem with something called domain tasting. And basically the idea behind domain tasting was ICANN had a new policy in which if you were unhappy with a domain, you could return it within, I think it was like 10, 14 days, whatever, and get a full refund. So basically, if you, the idea was that if you made a typo or if you did something stupid in the registration, or if that, your girlfriend broke up with you before you could give her the domain or whatever, you could get the money back for the domain. And while that made sense, a lot of spammers started abusing. What they would do is they'd buy up thousands, sometimes even millions of domains and taste them. Basically, they set them up for sites for a few days, see which were getting traffic organically, keep the handful of ones that were doing well, and return all the ones that were unwanted. So what ICANN did in response to this was they set up a new fee. Now the new fee was incredibly small. I think it was actually a quarter. Don't hold me to that one, but I think it was a quarter. And the idea was that if you were a lone domain, if you registered even stuck 10 domains, that's $2.50 on what's probably a $100 plus purchase. It's almost nothing to the expense of registering a domain. And if you needed to return one of those domains, that quarter fee, which would not be refundable, it's a non-refundable fee, would be the least of your concerns. I mean, you'd be getting the 10, 12, 15, whatever you're paying for the domain. You'd get that back, but not the 25-cent fee. You'd just be happy to get the vast bulk of it back. But if you were registering tens of thousands of domains, that quarter adds up very quickly, and suddenly domain tasting becomes highly unprofitable. So a system like that, which charges a very nominal fee for DMCA notices through some central repository, might work. It might help discourage abuse of the system, and especially if it was something where that fee would be returned in the event that the notices were valid, but not returned if it weren't. Something like that might help motivate the system, might help steer it. But of course, that system is loaded with a lot of problems. The biggest being that you'd have to determine who's going to administer it, how they're going to administer it, to set up accounts. It'd be a huge mess to set up, and it's not actually practical in the least. But it's still an idea, and it still shows that you can do a lot of good with small amounts of money, and you don't need $50, and it proves that this is not about this host sharing the cost of DMCA takedown notices or spreading the load. It's about them trying to profit from them and earn money from them, which I think is highly unethical. And I think even the pro-copyright firms, even people that support piracy, should look upon this system with suspicion and look upon it, as being unethical. Well, anyways, that's where I'm going to leave it here today. So in the meantime, this is Jonathan Bailey signing off.